अस्सलाम वालेकुम। ये है नॉबरी साउथ लंदन। ये मेरा नेबरहुड है, यहाँ मैं क़याम पज़ीर हूँ बहुत अरसे से। यहाँ पर ये मेरे अक़ब में आप देख सकते हैं नॉबरी मुस्लिम सेंटर। यहाँ पर एक फेमस स्कॉलर आजकल के करंट अफेयर्स पे इस्लामिक वर्ल्ड में किन किन ममालिक में क्या क्या आजकल गड़बड़ या क्या क्या इंटरनेशनल अफेयर्स का मामला चल रहा है, सूडान में, ख़ास तौर से मिडल ईस्ट में और पाकिस्तान में, इस पर एक बात करेंगे। जनाब हम्मादी साहब जो कि एक बहुत इल्म रखते हैं इस मामले में, बहुत उनकी इस पर नॉलेज है। मैं इनकी कुछ क्लिपिंग्स रिकॉर्ड करूँगा और आप लोगों के साथ शेयर करूँगा।
And a connection through knowing the affairs of the Greater Ummah, such that we can at the very least make dua for our brothers and sisters, and at the very least give sadaqah to our brothers and sisters, and at the very least spread awareness for the plight of our brothers and sisters around the world, because their plight is our plight, and their lands are our lands, so they should always remain in our thoughts, in our prayers. And one last thing before we start the discussion, I also think it's important that as we develop as individuals and as a community, something very prominent in the news, and as most of you would be aware by now, that there were elections that were just held a few days ago that weren't decisive. The incumbent president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, he did not pass the post in attaining more than 50% of the vote. However, his main rival, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, got less than him, about 5 percentage points behind him. But interestingly, Erdogan's party, the AK party, attained the largest share of the seats in parliament. Now, there is going to be a runoff on the 28th of May in relation to who is going to be the next president of Turkey, Erdogan or Kılıçdaroğlu. But what I sensed, Sami, in the build-up to this election was that there was a deep sense amongst Muslims of the significance of this election, more so than previous Turkish elections. There was a sense of anticipation, trepidation, fear, anxiety amongst Muslims about the result of this. So there was clearly...
First of all, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the generous invitation. Thank you for the audience for turning up. I was hoping it'd be less than this, but we'll see how it goes. It's true that everybody was following the Turkish elections, and I think one of the reasons that everybody followed it, particularly this time, is because there was a general sense that Erdogan could actually lose these elections, that he could very well be in trouble, that the Turkish economy, inflation is soaring, rents are soaring, price of basic goods are soaring, and a lot of that, some people would like to attribute it just to COVID and the wider economic downturn, but the reality is that the rate at which the soaring has taken place is a direct result of Erdogan's economic policies as he's tried to push those interest rates down. Some Muslims suggested that this was like a jihad on interest rates. However, I would also caution that the reason the interest rates are higher because Erdogan himself was putting those interest rates high over the past 20 years for economic reasons or the like. But the point here being is that it's not like he found something and decided to bring it down. He also entertained interest rates and then tried to bring it down, causing the lira essentially to collapse. One of the strangest things was that Erdogan did it so close to the elections, and I think one of the reasons being is that Erdogan truly believed that he would be able to ride it out as a result of his popularity. But going back to the key point here, I think the reason that everybody followed it is because there was a genuine concern that Erdogan might fall, and that Kılıçdaroğlu, the head of the CHP, the head of the party that banned the hijab, the head of the party that put the scholars in prison, the head of the party that called on the military to do a coup on every single prime minister, who even suggested that he might re-Islamize Turkey or liberate the religious influences, Kılıçdaroğlu might become president once more. And not only that, one of their things is that he would become president after Erdogan has changed the ruling system of Turkey from a parliamentary to a presidential, essentially making the president the supreme executive body as opposed to the parliament as it was in 2015. In other words, it was a very existential crisis, I would say, and that's not an exaggeration, for many of the religious Islamic elements in Turkey. That's not to suggest it has threatened France's domination in those areas. It's because Erdogan's Muslim rhetoric resonates with the Muslim populations, to the extent that when Muslims in sub-Saharan Africa go to a supermarket, when they see Bodrum versus Delice, they go and they buy Bodrum simply because it is a Turkish product and they believe that it's a Muslim power. The point here being is that, does Kilicdaroglu, if I ask you all here, does Kilicdaroglu resonate with you in any way whatsoever? The answer is no. So the point here being, would Kilicdaroglu evoke the same resonance in these countries that allows Turkey, a mid-sized power, to start competing with the superpowers that are established in the continent? The answer is no. And that's why I think that when you're looking at the reasons they want Erdogan out, when Macron said, so one of the things that Erdogan, and some brothers might be offended by it, he really brought Pakistan to the fore of the Muslim consciousness. If you ask Muslims about Pakistan before Imran Khan, Muslims probably said, I have a Pakistani friend, but I've never seen Muslims so interested in what's happening in Pakistan. I think a lot of it has to do with Imran Khan himself, and I know that some people sometimes think that he was all rhetoric and that he didn't do much for the economy. I'm not getting involved in those details, but I do think that his speech at the UN was one of the greatest speeches ever given in defense of Islam and the Prophet ﷺ. And I do think that some people say that, what does a speech benefit me? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that if you see an action that is wrong, fix it with your hand. If you can't with your hand, then with your tongue. And if you can't with your tongue, then in your heart, which is Adhaful Iman. Imran Khan did the second part, so he's not the weakest of Iman, he did that second part. And I think that in an age where the UAE said that Macron's anti-Islam rhetoric was justified for security reasons, I think that Imran Khan really helped to revive the Muslim consciousness with regards to this. Going back to the point, I think Pakistan now is in a process of deciding whether to rewrite the social contract between the army and the people. Who is the master of Pakistan? Is it the Pakistani people or is it the army? And this is why I think it was very interesting when Imran Khan said that my issue is with one man, which is the army chief of staff, and not with the institution of the army. It's also the reason why I'm very keen to ensuring that while I respect the Pakistani army and what it represents in terms of preserving the borders that many people would like to see merge back with India or would like to see undermined, I do think that the reality is that what's happening in Pakistan is the people are essentially demanding and saying, look, we want to choose our leader, and based on what my personal opinion is, Imran Khan would win the elections. I think that when you look at the landslide elections and the by-elections, I think right now he's definitely the most popular politician in Pakistan. But I think the question about civil war depends on the extent to which the army believes that it should not compromise on its control over the policy making in Pakistan. I think one of the things that's quite fascinating is many Pakistani friends say that Imran Khan failed in the economy or the like. The reason that's an irrelevant argument is because Imran Khan was not toppled because of that. He was toppled because he fell out with the army chief of staff over who should be the next intelligence chief and who should be the successor to the army chief. It was about how does a democratically elected prime minister have the right to say to an army chief who should occupy these senior positions. And that's why I think it's about the social contract. Usually, Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anhu, when he was told by Ubayd ibn Jarrah that Umar al-Khattab had ordered that he be removed as commander-in-chief, Khalid ibn Walid's response was not, how dare you, I'm the one who has, did all these futuhat. Khalid ibn Walid was like, okay, this is the order of them. In other words, Umar al-Khattab did not even tell Khalid ibn Walid directly. He said, Ubaydullah, go tell him. In other words, you might have said social contract. Does the army believe it's the master, or are the people the master of Pakistan? And this is why I think now Pakistan is going through a very dangerous territory. Primarily because it looks like the army doesn't want to cede that kind of control. Even the Supreme Court recognizes the danger. When the Supreme Court comes along and says Imran Khan should not be arrested and should not be arrested by the paramilitary forces, the Supreme Court is saying to the army, we have a serious crisis here in that people are on the streets and they're demanding it. Do the elections and let's deal with it later. So that, I know I haven't answered your question, but I think that civil war is not out of the question. I think that Imran Khan is losing his ability to influence his people to stop taking to the streets and essentially attacking some of the army military installations. Because I think for many of his supporters, it's no longer about Imran Khan. It's about army, we've told you what we want, and you're saying no. So Imran Khan sort of, I think, might end up on the side. But I realize that Maghrib Madan is coming in, and I hope some of that helped to address it. Sorry.